as far as our camera on everybody in the room, but we can go ahead and start recording. Oh, we have.
We are recording.
And I'm going to make sure that the minutes reflect the roll call, just because I want to expedite things as much as possible. So let's not do a formal roll call other than what I've already shared as far as a quorum for Boulder Junction VJAD parking. So with that, I will hand it over to Ryan. Do you want to go through our regular agenda items?
Sure, thanks. Let me just scroll to the top of the packet here.
Oh, and we couldn't hear you for a second there, but now we should be able to.
How's this?
Perfect.
Okay, great. All right, so you said skip roll call for today. So I think if we can, for parking, then review any questions or comments about the meeting minutes from last time. Did you all have a chance to review any questions or changes to those, or should we approve?
I move that we approve.
Is that okay with you, Rebecca?
I second, yes.
Okay, great. All in favor then? Thanks. I don't know if we had any planned participation from the public. I don't think we have any members on the Zoom.
Yes, we do have a raised hand. So Rebecca Davies, I will, at your approval, allow Rebecca to start speaking.
Yes, please.
Rebecca, you should be able to unmute.
Great, thanks so much. Hello, Boulder Junction Commissions. I'm Becky Davies, or Rebecca, either's fine. And I'm a member of the Transportation Board. So I'm here to introduce myself, say hello, and I wanted to give you a heads up that I'll be emailing you, as well as your commission members who aren't on the call today, about within the next day or two, about a proposal that TAB has been working on to ask the next city council, so this would be the 2024 city council, to add an item to their work plan related to updating off-street parking ordinances in city code. And so we'd like them to update those and consider removing the minimums that are currently in the code and consider adding maximums and adopting a new TDM ordinance. So I'll provide more details of that in the email that I sent to you for you to look through and consider. But I'm coming to you to ask that you consider whether you would sign on to this request as a board member, but as an individual, not, this would not be an item that you vote on as a board, rather you could sign on as an individual to support the request to council. And of course, we're coming to you to ask if you would support this request because of your involvement with parking and TDM as commission members. So I'll go ahead and follow up with you in the next day or two with the text of our request, some more background information. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions about it. We can chat about it more. Yeah, and then I'll follow up with you about a week after that to see if you would be open to signing on to this request. Yeah, I think that is it. So thank you so much for considering it, and also for your work as a commission member. So you'll get an email from me in the next day or two with more details. Thanks.
Thank you, Becky. Appreciate you coming to the meeting today. Okay. Any questions about the consent agenda items in the packet?
No.
Or the fund financials? I guess we could address those at the same time. Okay, not seeing anything there, so I think that moves us to matters from staff. Is that right, Chris?
That is correct. We have 3 items for you all this evening. I hope included in your packet. Did the petition make it to the packet, Lisa?
If we put in the mill levy memo.
No, there was, there. I think it's not listed in the attachments on the agenda, but we have received a petition for inclusion of a property within Boulder Junction TDM. Well, we don't have a quorum for that commission for this meeting, and we're not asking for a formal vote today, but we wanted to make sure that you all were aware that a petition had been received for adding a parcel into the district. Teresa Pinkel is here. Teresa, do you just want to come talk from my computer to share with you just a little bit about the process moving forward as the commission considers this petition for adding a parcel?
Thanks. Hi, this is Teresa with the City of Boulder. Just giving you a quick rundown on what this process will look like. The first step obviously is for us to receive the petition from the petitioners, which they have submitted. At this point, what we are looking at is a number of different noticing exercises, a public hearing to get public feedback on this. And then you as the commissioners have the ability to approve or deny this particular petition. So the first step will be to conduct the noticing. That will include basically sending out that notice both in the Daily Camera, so just a newspaper of regular circulation, as well as sending notices to each of the property owners. So we will be pulling information from the county assessor and getting those notices out, and then scheduling a public hearing opportunity that will likely coincide with the November meeting, and allow members of the public to either respond in writing to our office prior to that, or come and voice their opinions publicly during that meeting. And then you all will have the opportunity to weigh in on the matter as a commission. If the petition is approved, then there are a number of steps that will be taken to formally incorporate the property into the district boundaries. This is a little bit unique because there will be a pilot agreement and catch up associated with it to make sure that it's fairly compensating all of the other district properties to this point for the benefit that they receive from joining the property after the fact. So any questions high level on that? Okay, great.
This is across the street, right? Across 30th Street from the steel yards.
Yeah, it's just to the west there.
Okay, and then did that building end up being affordable housing, or how many units is it?
It is 100% affordable apartment transitional housing.
Okay, all right. I don't know if anybody else has any other questions, so just thought maybe we could provide context on where it was and what it was versus just a street address.
Will additional context, like along the lines of what you're asking, Rebecca, do you think that Teresa, that will be included in the petition that we'll review in a future packet?
So the petition itself, let me just get to that. It's fairly basic. It just states the property's description, the owners, the reason for inclusion, obviously. And this is specific, I should mention, to the TDM is where they're petitioning into for those mobility options. So the petition itself is fairly high level. Certainly can get some more information from the property owners. I'm sure they'd be happy to share the full scope of their development.
And then we will certainly make sure that we are thinking fairly and following ordinance language when it comes to the pilot fees that we are going to incorporate into the approval process for their petition. And so that information will be provided at a future meeting for sure. Rebecca?
Yeah, so do you happen to know whether or not they got a parking reduction, and if they're kind of abiding by the parking maximum limits of BJAD, even though they're not asking the parking district?
Yeah, they got a significant parking reduction associated with their development, largely because they are, it is a transitional housing, affordable housing development, and they're anticipating that none of their residents are going to actually have cars. That's why it's been so important for them to be able to join the TDM district, because they want to be able to provide other transportation options.
Okay, cool, thank you. And then maybe not specifically to this particular development because it is 100% affordable, whatever, but I think we've talked about in the past, the picking and choosing which district people join. And joining for the fun stuff while the rest of us are supporting the parking debt, so would like to keep that in mind for properties.
Absolutely. This is something that the city is tackling currently as we're evaluating all boards and commissions. You all should have received some communication from the consultant that we're working with on that effort, evaluating the board and commission program throughout the city. And one of the things they are considering specifically is how to simplify the Boulder Junction district moving forward, especially as we are looking at Boulder Junction Phase 2. And wanting to make sure that we're not repeating mistakes from the past, and maybe through the process, simplify our approach moving forward for the entire area.
Yeah, I'm interested in fixing the one that exists now, not just preventing it from happening in the future, right? So
we would want to, we are in agreement there for sure.
okay, thank you.
If there are no more questions on that update, we can move over to Regan and Lane on if you can make it brief, because Ryan has to take off and I want to make sure we have time for Sandra on the mill levy options.
Sure. Thanks, Chris. It'll be very brief because it is in your consent agenda, but I just wanted to provide you all with an update on the wayfinding and branding project. So again, this will include a mix of gateway, directional, and destination signage throughout the district. At this point, as a reminder, we've entered into an agreement with a licensed vendor who will fabricate and install the signage. And since our last update, we've now submitted our application for permits. There have been some delays with the permitting process that weren't accounted for in the original schedule. So as it stands right now, permitting seems to be nearing completion. We just have one more comment to address. And at this rate, the wayfinding signage will be installed at the end of the year. Of course, this is entirely dependent on weather, so it could very likely be pushed into 2024. But that is our goal right now, to start installing the foundation and base, the concrete before it gets too cold, and then that wayfinding signage, that kind of final piece by the end of the year. So, and then lastly, once permits are received, we will be communicating any construction or traffic impacts to local community members, including local businesses and residents. And again, as always, happy to send around those design mock-ups and the location plan. Any questions? Robin?
Has anything changed in the design mock-ups since last we saw them?
So the only change at this point is on private property. It's on the RTD parking garage. There were some restrictions around, the sign was originally going to be projecting off of the parking garage, the parking identification, but it now needs to be flush with the wall. So it'll just be a wall mounted parking sign.
But that's all private property, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank
There
you.
are no questions. Thanks so much, Regan and Lane. I want to move over to our final matter from staff. Included in your packet was a memo that we worked with the city attorney's office to put together regarding some questions that have been coming up with the commission about opportunities to provide some sort of rebate or discount or reduction in the mill levy, given that we have paid off our debt obligations in parking. Our EcoPass costs have gone down, understanding what our options are moving forward as we consider a variety of variables about where we're headed next with the commission. So Sandra Yanis is here. She's in the city attorney's office. to help answer questions and maybe provide a brief overview of the memo that was provided, and then we can talk about next steps. So Sandra, do you want to take over?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I had hoped to have reached my destination, but I have not. So I pulled over. I'm in my vehicle, but thank you for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to address the question that the commission has presented. And I've been working with outside counsel Kim Guckenberger on this issue. He's an expert in the field, and hopefully you had a chance to review the memo. I think it's pretty comprehensive in terms of the questions that were presented. My understanding is that the commissions are interested in looking into options of reducing the mill levy or providing refunds, and that ability is available under the statute. What's important here is that we don't want to run afoul of Tabor restrictions, which, as you may know, require voter approval, typically for increases in mill levies and taxes. And because you're asking for a reduction, that doesn't implicate or trigger Tabor. However, there are implications for not doing so in a temporary way. So in other words, the recommendation would be, if the commission is interested in this option, to move forward with a temporary reduction in the mill levy, that would provide the commission and the district with the ability to return to the original mill levy if they so desired to do that at a later date without having to go for voter approval. The other thing that is important to note is that there is a current proposition, it's called Proposition HH, that is going to be on the November ballot that will, if it's passed, will create a lot of additional hurdles from a procedural perspective. And so it's probably good for you all to think about delaying any decision until we know for sure whether or not that proposition's passed or not. The legal implications are unknown at the moment. I think that we would know more once, if it is passed, and so that could inform any decision that you might want to make in terms of going through with a temporary reduction of the mill levy or a refund. Let's see. I think, well, the last issue had to do with whether a refund or reduction in mill levy, how that is treated in the situations where there's a commercial lease, and who holds that right to have that reduction or refund, whether it's the property owner or the tenant. And I think that would be a contractual issue that the parties would need to address between themselves. The property owner is actually the beneficiary of the refund or the reduction, and so it would need to be addressed in a contract situation between the two in order to provide a refund to the tenant. I think I've covered everything, but I'm open to questions if anybody has any.
Go ahead, Rebecca.
Yeah, I'll go. First off, so I think our next meeting would be the end of November, right? Would it be after that election?
Correct.
Okay. if we made a decision at that meeting, how long would it take to implement? Would refunds come for this year or would they take place in 2024?
At this point, we would be targeting actually a future year, because this commission's already recommended approval of the 2024 budget that included projected revenues associated with the current mill levies. Doesn't mean that we can't explore going a different direction mid-year 2024. But I think the preference, and given the fact that refunds don't necessarily make it back to the tenants, if we temporarily reduce the mill levy and never bill the property owner for that tax in the first place, then through triple net arrangements, then the tenants benefit. And I think that was the premise and the point that the commission wanted to explore in the first place, was reducing burdens, particularly to retail commercial tenants.
I know from my point, it was for residential.
Okay.
Because
Well,
they already have parking spots that, yeah. I mean, to benefit all of it, but.
Sure. So anyhow, I would say that what we would likely target, we'll know some more in November. And if this is the direction that the commission body wants to go, we would probably target a 2025 implementation date. Of course, that would be so, and Sandra, please correct me if I'm wrong, in 2025, property owners pay the previous year's property taxes, because everything is always a year in arrears. So we would do the work in 2024 to apply the reduction in 2025.
Correct.
So more to learn, but at this point, that would be the timeline that if this is the direction that the commissions want to go, that we would point to. And of course, it is the Boulder City Council is the board of directors of the Boulder Junction GIDs, and so this would also need to be approved by council ultimately. We would need to make them aware, and they could have the option of calling it up. So, but you all do have the by ordinance right to go down that path.
Okay. I would actually really like to say thank you to staff and Sandra for looking into this. It's been a serious request from several people, so thank you.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, totally agree. I found the memo to be really clear, and it seems like it gives us the toolbox that we need to have the conversation, just around the options and, what are the different knobs that we could suggest the city to turn to have the effects that, we think would be beneficial in the district. So very, very helpful. Thanks.
So at this point, to be specific on next steps, staff would want to come back to the commission in the first quarter of 2024 with the options that we, to lay out moving forward for the implementation in 2025.
Okay. Are there any steps that you would need from the commission to take, or anything between now and then?
Nope.
Okay. Thank you.
Other than if there's anything that you felt like you're missing still, we're thinking about a lot, many things of work that we need to get done between now and then. But if there's anything that's on your mind in this front, we want to make sure we've documented it.
No, I appreciate having different options and understanding the consequences of each.
Great. Yep, that'll be our next one.
I had two questions that we don't need to answer right now, but just kind of maybe a little bit bigger picture thoughts. What is how much triple net leasing occurs in the district that might be able to see some advantage, commercially from a property tax refund versus any other type of lease where that would just go to the property owner and, it would be subject to the contractual negotiation like Sandra mentioned. So that's one question. And then I think the other one with the temporary reduction is short-term very clear why that's advantageous, but a perpetually temporary reduction every year seems disadvantageous to the district long term. So I don't know, I just would be interested to think about what it would look like if we temporarily reduce the mill levy rate 5 to 10 years in a row. What does that mean? Would we ever, would we leave it to future commission members and city staff to decide if that should become permanent or not? So yeah, I don't know. I think future voters maybe want to have some sort of say eventually, if we're just always temporarily reducing for a year. So I don't, just a thought that popped into my head.
Ryan, just a couple of thoughts on that. First of all, property values are going up year over year. So even as you reduce the rate, the amount of money going into the budget should still be increasing. So I don't know if that would be a concern for several years. And then whether or not where taxpayers might have a problem with a reduced rate is if they stopped getting services. And in this case, right, it's parking. So would they stop getting services as long as the service is funded? I'm not sure anybody would come back and say, please tax me more.
So and just to put a finer point on it, we've reached a point now with the districts where our sources of funds are greater than our current uses of funds. So part of the conversation that we want to have with the commission early next year is an exploration of with no changes in the services that we're currently providing, what's a realistic level that the mill levy could be brought to where we're still able to maintain the current level of service, knowing that RTD may at some point increase the cost of the transit passes significantly, or there might be a great opportunity for the district to buy up some level of transit service that's very compelling, that therefore the possible uses of funds would exceed the current sources of funds, and then we have a conversation. And so those are the paths that we want to explore in the conversation early next year, is whether or not we want to and are able to identify uses of funds that are very compelling and important and a top priority, and maybe we don't pursue a reduction or temporary reduction. That again, time will tell, but we have some work to do there.
Thanks.
If there are no other questions from commissioners, then that concludes matters from staff.
I'm going to hop off if that's all right. Good to see you all.
Thanks,
you.
Sandra.
Thank you for getting that.
You're welcome.
I don't think any other questions. I think our matters from commissioners are dependent on members not present. So maybe we can table both of those for the following meeting. Regarding the BJAD phase 2, that was presented to council this week or last week, to approve the land use designation changes, if I remember correctly.
I'd say it's this week. Sorry, we've already done a dry run, so I had it in my head that but it is this Thursday.
So tomorrow. So I think the recommended land use designation change was to the transit-oriented mixed use, MUTOD, mixed use transit-oriented development. So I think that the goal of that land use designation, if I remember from the conversation, is to provide a high amount of flexibility in the subsequent zoning options that are available in the different areas of the phase 2. I wasn't able to attend the last meeting, so I think we were maybe hoping Sue might have been able to and provide an update, but that's the specifics of what
that there's also included a number of modifications to the city's transportation master plan associated with new connections, primarily for bikes and pedestrians in the Boulder Junction Phase 2 area. And that's being considered by council tomorrow as well. But as far as I know, no major shifts from the last time you heard from planning on those items.
Any, thanks. Any questions or comments or any other distinct items to bring up today or to table for the next meeting, Rebecca and Robin?
I'll just say that I got to attend the BJAD function event and it was very wet. And I did see Sue there as well as some candidates. And I hear that Mayor Aaron was there. And there was a brief period without rain where kids got to dance and everything. So really appreciate that that happened, even though we didn't have the best weather.
I was just going to note that I was really sorry to miss it because I do bike every day to work and I ended up getting stuck in the rain trying to head over. But I really, really appreciate y'all sharing the emails. I found that very helpful. And I think if people are open to it, that might be something we can kind of use like clips from for, getting people to come to future events.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, despite the rain, we did get a lot of feedback, positive feedback, and we would love to be able to use resources if you all continue to approve, to use some district resources to keep things like that happening, hopefully with better weather.
Great. Okay, anything else today or should we adjourn?
I think since we don't have the other people, we kind of have to.
Yeah.
Can't go over those matters.
Yeah.
Thanks for staying after, Ryan. I know you're really busy. And you
So
had to leave early.
I do want to note for the next meeting that's scheduled for November 15th, if we are going to be considering this petition for inclusion in BJAD, TDM is absolutely imperative. We have the commissioners for that district there. So I appreciate all of you, and we'll work on making sure that Jennifer and Sue are able to attend. Rebecca?
Yeah, I don't think, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't think that we were considering reducing it for TDM. It was mostly the parking side. So just in anticipation that we will get bus service back, and that's the desired state.
Yeah, and I'm referring to the parcel that wants to
Oh, okay, thank you.
TDM. So we need the TDM commissioners here for that. So please plan to attend November 15th. All right.
Will do.
And that's, I think, the fastest commission meeting ever.
Awesome. Thanks so much, everyone. See you soon.
Okay.